So I want to talk about Snowbird for a minute and the sort of progression we've seen over the last few years, starting with one star. So wearing my one star shirt, and I'm glad I have my video set up again, just because I think this will be a good thing to sort of talk through rather than try to write about, or at least I hope so. Um, but for me, and I think a lot of people, one star is still one of those things that kind of stands out in the, if there were a resort marketing hall of fame, it would be up near the top, or in the glass case at the end of the hall. It's one of those campaigns that is it's kind of rare in the ski industry where it sort of goes beyond, it sort of breaks out and almost goes mainstream. And there's not a lot of value in that mainstream coverage, but it sort of represents just how sort of good, how well tuned the message is that is being delivered. And I mean, that's how I feel about it. It's such a clever campaign. And it came at, I think, a perfect time because, I mean, you think back 4 or 5 years, and resorts were really one of the common things we were talking about as an industry was this sort of homogenous view of resorts. The concern that the unique character of individual resorts is being lost by some of these larger groups and things. And so Snowbird came out and said, we are not every resort. We are steep. We are challenging. We are for a different type of skier. And for me, I think that's my favorite part of the campaign, because every resort has something unique about them that they could embrace. But that's kind of a scary thing to do, because it feels like when you do that, you're going to sort of alienate other people or other parts of your market. And Snowbird just said, look, this is our market. We're going to talk to them in a way that speaks to them and just not worry about the rest, because they were so confident in their market. And I think they should have been, for sure. I've worn this shirt a lot since then. I love it. It's just a great reminder of that campaign, and the idea of just sort of embracing who you are, embracing your sort of strengths. As I've worn it, I've learned that not everybody sort of agrees with me and my view of that campaign. Some people will see it and they'll focus on sort of the one star, this sort of possible negative perception of Snowbird, instead of those conversations that come after that are, Snowbird one star, and I can say, yeah, it's this amazing campaign. Snowbird's such an incredible mountain. They could kind of play with this, and that story is such a fun story to tell. But it's easy to kind of see the one star instead of seeing the full story. Nonetheless, not everyone feels the same way I do, and I totally get that. We can be, it's part of being human. We can look at the same things and come away with different conclusions. As Dave moved on and Tess took over, and we sort of watched her team get their legs under them, I was really curious what they were going to do with Snowbird's brand and Snowbird's marketing. The first thing I really noticed, and this may not be accurate, but this is my perception, is really lean into a color that we didn't see Snowbird dig into a lot, which is the color red. Traditionally, there's the blue and the green and the Snowbird wings, but there's always been red because of the red tram and the sort of iconic symbol that has become for Snowbird. So with that red, it was cool to see Snowbird lean into that red and sort of show a little bit of contrast to the other brand. It was still connected with their imagery and their logo and other things, but they sort of took this tangent and took red as a big part of who they are. I thought that was really interesting and clever. And a good example of that is from Mountain Gazette. What was this, 199, where the big full page spread is this giant red Snowbird ad, sort of that burned over red on a black and white image. And we saw a lot of that for a couple of years. This ad, though, if you notice, it also says a different breed. And a different breed is a tagline that I saw Snowbird start to use. I want to say it was fall of 2022. I think it was going into the 2022 season. And I liked that. A different breed, it doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue at first, but it follows that same idea of Snowbird is not for everyone. Snowbird is not for normal skiers. Snowbird is for, in their words, a different breed of skier. And this year it's been fun to see them really build on that with another sort of layer to that. In fact, it's in, speaking of Mountain Gazette, their ad this year really goes big on that by leaning into another famous part of our industry, which is the green, blue, black progression iconography. So I've got a smaller version here, so maybe I should use this instead. But they took that green, blue, black, and then instead of using the red as something separate, they used red as another progression beyond those things. I thought that was really, really clever. I don't know if you can see this, but I can't remember who shared it even. I'll put a link in the post. But someone took a picture of the billboard that Snowbird has at the base of Big Cottonwood Canyon, which is where Brighton and Solitude are. And it says, beginner, intermediate, expert, straight ahead, a different breed to the right. Again, just that sort of playful banter that you sometimes see between resorts. Snow Basin used a billboard in a similar area saying go north to avoid the crowds. It's sort of become this intersection of resorts kind of playing against each other a little bit. And I thought they did this really, really well. That same sort of idea of the progression, but just with arrows pointing directions to this is where Snowbird is. And you'll see this other places too. If you go to Ski Utah's website, you'll see a different variation. That variation, I think I've got an example of. Yep. Right here. This is not, I haven't used this sticker yet, so it's kind of faded out, but you can see that same idea of just using those symbols that are so recognizable and building on top of that kind of understanding of progression to show Snowbird as something else, something more, something special. I think they've done a really good job with this. I think it's really clever. They've built up this sort of red the last few years, and then they've kind of driven it home and tied it back to this embracing who they really are with this year's campaign. So kudos to Tess, kudos to the team at Snowbird. Fantastic job.